My name is Claire Hurtado, and this is my reading response number 1 for Lee 167. Our reading this week was on getting to know your students in the aspect of physical education. Honestly, when I opened this source, I was really surprised to see that it was about physical education because I kind of was like, what am I going to do with this? Like I'm not a PE teacher. And so I was reading through it, and what I wanted to first touch on was this sentence in the closing statement that said effective teachers who use a student-centered approach are able to design lessons that meet the needs of all students. Which I had to reread that a couple times because I was like, dang, like it kind of called you out to get to know your students because your lessons are student based and student centered. When you come from that approach, it's a lot easier to connect with your students than it is, oh, well, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to try and fit in the student's understanding somewhere in there. Because I've been at 3 different schools or 3 different districts. I've been to Hanford, I've been in Visalia, and now I'm in Tulare. When I worked at one of the districts, I encountered a lot of teachers that were very specific with what they wanted to do, which was great, but it never opened the opportunity to get to know their students on a personal level because they were so focused on this is school, this is what we're doing, this is what we're learning, and my way or the highway, like this is what we're doing. You're learning A today and that's what we're doing, instead of kind of focusing on, well, how does my student learn best? It kind of just was specific. And so I liked the different ways that they told us how to learn from our students. I believe there were 6 different ways. One of the ways that um, didn't make the most sense to me that I really want to dig more into was the picture identification, which I feel like for me would connect because I'm a visual learner. But then I thought about how you had to implement all of the different things. So, different race, different gender, different ethnicity, different backgrounds, different cultures, different ages, making sure that they're appropriately aged for students. Like, they focused on it being physical education in this source, clearly, because it's physical education. But with it being our students, I wanted to know how that would look for classroom based learning, like not physical education, but like math or English or history. What would those pictures look like? Because for them, it was their group based activities, seeing if everybody felt like they were participating, or like having people who felt they were participating and then compared to people who felt they were standing in the back. Who didn't really want to play because they were uncomfortable, or because they didn't want to play the sport because they didn't feel confident in it, or whatever the reasoning may be. I wondered what that would look like within the classroom aspect of, what does it look like for a student who sits in the background in math, may not answer as many of the questions because it's not connecting, or because they feel nervous about what they're answering, or because they don't feel confident in what they're answering. But I wondered what that would look like in the pictures, for it to be appropriate for their learning and for them to connect. Oh, this is me not feeling confident about this, so this picture represents how I'm feeling. Would it be faces, like just cartoon faces? Would it be like counters, that like a student looking stressed? Like, what would it look like for the classroom? Kind of, it made me kind of confused, but I loved that the picture identification touched on um, like body image, how they felt about themselves and identifying how they felt about themselves. I feel like that's so important, especially I'm in first grade. So, first grade, I mean, they're still so like in their bubble. I'm so great, which is so good. But knowing that when you get to 5th grade, when you get to 6th grade, when you get to 4th grade, even 3rd grade, it's starting to get somewhere in there that they start wanting to dress like everybody and they start wanting to be like everybody. Like, the individualism of them is kind of taken from them because they are growing up and they are realizing that there's cool kids and things like that, you know? So I feel like that's such an important topic to touch on, and being able to identify that in a safe atmosphere where students feel safe enough to come to you with how they're feeling, and being able to identify that in a safe, confidential area. I really want to be in 5th grade or somewhere up there. And so I really grabbed onto that and was like, oh, I really like this. I want to take this with me, because it's so important to create a safe atmosphere for our students to feel that they have the opportunity to share without it being I guess held against them, or make them feel that they're less than because of where they're coming from. And it's being vulnerable and having that vulnerability, a two-way street, because you want them to feel that they have the opportunity to be vulnerable, without being judged, because that's such a big thing. I also sorry, I'm looking at my notes. Their personal profile I really liked as well, especially for first grade. It kind of tied into my getting to know you activity that I did with them, where they were able to share their name, share their favorite activity, share their favorite color. I would love to incorporate share their favorite foods, share what they love to do, we made banners in our classroom that we sent home with them, where they could show their families, show their pets, show their favorite activities. We had one girl who talked about how she loved cheerleading, and one girl showed that she loved dance and K-pop. And I feel like that just gets to show their personalities, and we hang them in our classroom. And I feel like it really just allows their own personalities and individualism to just kind of show in the class, and it allows them to have like a sense of community, because they are getting to show who they are. They are getting to get excited that oh, I see my mom in that picture, oh, I see my brother in that picture. They get to explain who they are and where they come from, what their favorite foods are, what their culture is, and they get to share that bit of themselves that they may not get to share in their clothing, or they may not get to share in their writing all the time, or they may not get to share in their math. Like, it gives an opportunity for them to create something that's personal for them that they get to share, which I really liked that this source highlighted that, because I feel like it's so important for them to get to share where they come from and share who they are, and share, because that's how we get to know them. And that's what I want to know, is who they are. And then that translates from them feeling comfortable sharing who they are, and then that translates into how to teach them better, because we know where they're coming from, being able to see how they're being raised and who they're living with. If they have 5 siblings, if they're an only child, it really does play into the different types of education, the different types of learning, the different types of how they're connect with the material. And then we can tie that into our curriculum, which then ties them into it, because, oh, we're talking about farms today. Does anybody live on a farm? And then it ties them into, and then they automatically feel connected, that they get to share something that they're knowledgeable about. And then even maybe they may not know their ABCs, but they do know about cows, and they do know about pigs, they do know about chickens. And it does get them excited to share what they get to know. They get to feel smart, because they are smart, and they're just smart in different ways and different aspects. And then we get to highlight and harp on that to allow them to build their confidence to grow somewhere else. So I feel like all of the different strategies that we learned about their personal profiles, about their personality identifications, about their the picture identifications, it all just ties into making them feel more confident in their learning, so they do grow as a learner, so that way they feel more confident when they come alongside that educational aspect. So they already know that we're on their side supporting them, because we want to get to know them, because we want to know them on a personal level. So then it just drives them to want to grow more, to connect with us. So then they do feel confident enough to say, hey, I'm confused in this part, can you explain this to me? So they don't just sit there confused, because they know that we care enough to dive deeper into their personal lives, because we care about them. Because caring about them is going to translate them into wanting to learn, because there's going to be that want to engage, that drive to engage, because there's that teacher-student relationship. So I actually really liked this source, even though I was confused about being physical education. I feel like that opened up a whole different door to seeing 2 different sides of that educational aspect. So thank you.